What do you think about? Okay, so there's some backlash. You got all these outright people who are claiming the movie didn't do well because of their boycott. What do you think about that whole controversy?
I just saw the latest numbers for it, and I don't know a single director out there that wouldn't call $351 million a success.
Exactly. So
I mean, so
but it is losing money, but you have to kind of put an asterisk next to that. It's losing money because they had to reshoot so many scenes, and it went. It's like it went way over budget.
Right.
So they ended up.
What do you know what the final cost of it was?
I think I've read it was about 250 million.
And that's with everything.
Well, then you gotta factor in. No, that's not everything. I mean, that doesn't include the marketing that they did. The marketing, which wasn't a lot.
So they're probably you think breaking even?
They'll probably break even, but there's this whole thing on the internet. You gotta see it.
Go do your own research on this and see what we're talking about, because there's a lot of different things going on.
Well, they boycotted the first movie, so-called boycotted, because all these outright guys didn't like the fact that there was a female lead and a black lead in the movie. And supposedly...
Well, those dinosaurs just need to get on the...
Right. Well, okay, so this is what happened with this whole issue. They claim to be boycotting that first movie, which obviously didn't work. They say they cost... I think the official estimates that these... There was some website involved in it, some outright website. The official estimate was that they cost the movie $4 million.
Out of 350, okay.
No, I'm talking about The Force Awakens.
Oh, okay.
Their boycott of
well, that movie made close to $1 billion.
No, it made $2 billion.
$2 billion, okay.
Okay. So they also boycotted the next movie. That The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi has made $1.3 billion so far. So they failed. They pretty much failed in those first two attempts. Now
they can't.
Well, now with Solo, they're claiming like victory because supposedly it's going to lose 80 million. But like I said, that has more to do with the fact that they had to reshoot and they went over budget, and it also has I think another reason it didn't do so well was because it came out a week after Deadpool 2.
Right.
Because
that wasn't the smartest marketing ever.
Right.
Because if you're going to run a movie like that while the other movie's still in the theater.
I mean, it was still hot in the theaters when Solo came out, because I remember I was in the beach when I went and saw Solo, and my kids, my daughter and her boyfriend, we went to the theater. Me and my wife went to see Solo because we had already seen Deadpool. They did not, I wanted them to come with us. They was like, no, we want to see Deadpool.
All right.
And they're not outright people. I mean, even my daughter wanted to see Deadpool.
Right. Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, Deadpool was way better than Solo.
Exactly, but
I just don't think...
You got these people, they're saying, well, our boycott finally worked. No, your boycott did not finally work. There was those two factors in play. The fact that it was going up against Deadpool and the fact that they went over budget. But it still made, like you said, $350 million so far.
And it's still in the theater.
And it's still in the
theaters. And that's what I was going to say about it, okay? The best measurement of a movie's success, is how long it runs, okay? I've seen movies run a couple of weeks at most and get sent straight down the DVD aisle,
Right.
Companies are going to leave, these production companies are going to leave these movies in the theater if they're still making money. Solo's still in the theater. So you can say whatever you want to say, but it would not be taking up space in that theater's arsenal of movies if it wasn't selling tickets.
It's not one of the main tentpole movies like A Force Awakens or that. Right. It's a standalone. It's kind of like Rogue One. If you look at their numbers, they're running kind of neck and neck in the amount of money they're making.
And here's, in my opinion, again, here's where I think Disney is missing on these side stories. They're trying to make these side stories as big and glamorous and exciting as these storyline movies, and I don't think they need to do that. I don't think that it's necessary for them to invest all these millions of dollars and go after these huge stars and, you know, and try to turn these side stories into movies that can hang with the storyline. Mm-hmm. I think that they could make good movies with these side stories. They could make these good movies with good stories.
Right.
With good writing. Spend your money on writing and developing a story and telling a story that even people that aren't Star Wars fans can get on board with. Because you're not telling the Star Wars story, really. You're doing a standalone that just happens to be a part of this universe.
Right.
Tell a good story, man. Tell a good story.
What do you think about this controversy? These people who were supposedly boycotting, they're blaming. There's all these stories on YouTube. You can put in Kathleen Kennedy. They've zeroed in on Kathleen Kennedy, saying she ruined she's the president of Lucasfilm.
Is this the Star Wars fan base that are saying this, or is this...
Yeah, some of it. A lot of it, is the fan base. I think it's, like I said, a lot of this boycott nonsense started with the outright, but it's moved into the mainstream fan base. And a lot of them are zeroing in on her because she's, of course, a woman. And, they're claiming she's a SJW, social justice warrior. But to me, a lot of the things that people didn't like about The Force Awakens and The Last Jedi originated with J.J. Abrams.
Yeah, who's a fan.
Because she pretty much she did hire him, but he got free reign on developing the stories. And J.J. Abrams is big on diversity. Although, as a director, I kind of think he's a hack. I think he kind of killed Star Trek too, the Star Trek movies. I like that first Star Trek movie, but if you've seen the other ones, they're kind of bad. Oh
yeah, man, I think that J.J. Abrams has some skill.
He has some storytelling,
but he has fallen victim to any director who has gained a modicum of success. They then become a player of the Hollywood game, and then their idea is at that point, they come in with all this all this vision and idea, and then they turn into another Hollywood producer or another Hollywood director where they're trying to make the suits happy and make a lot of money. Because at the end of the day, I don't care who you are, you will not make another movie if your movies don't make money.
Right, and his movies make money.
I
think the point of contention, though, is the fact, the point I was driving at was that it's not the diversity, because I didn't like The Force Awakens as much as some people did. I had problems with that. I had less problems, if you can believe it, with Last Jedi, because from what I can see, the fanboys love The Force Awakens, most of them, and they hated The Last Jedi.
Well, they made Luke into such a punk, man.
They made who into?
They made Luke
Skywalker
into a punk.
I like what they did with Luke.
I liked how they ended it.
Yeah.
But at first it was like, man, grow some balls, dude.
Well, he was disillusioned with what had happened.
Skywalker.
But still, you can't write a story where a character. A problem with a lot of sequels, with rebooting any franchise, is you can't have the characters at the point they were at Return of the Jedi, where everybody they conquered, and the universe is at peace, and everybody's happy. Leia and Harrison go out and get married and live happily ever. You can't start another franchise at that height. There's no drama.
Yeah, there's nowhere to take it.
Which is why when Force Awakens opens, Han and Leia aren't together anymore. They're kind of divorced.
Right.
Luke is in hiding. The Republic is dealing
Back
with this
in power.
Well, the First Order knocks them out of power in short order. So, I mean, I understand why they did those things, but at the same time, I felt like there was a lot of plot contrivances in that first movie. They take out there's that scene where they steal the TIE fighter and crash land on the planet, and they crash land literally like a few miles from where Rey is.
Right.
I just thought this whole entire planet, that's where they crash land. There's stuff like that kind of bothered me. And then they take the Millennium Falcon just happened to be
there
nearby for Rey and Finn to take, and then they take off, and Solo and Chewbacca just happen to be nearby and track down the Millennium Falcon. It's just, there were so many contrivances in that movie, and the character. Now, and it wasn't the fault of the actors or diversity or anything like that. The writing was not, the characters particularly were not as defined as the original trilogy.
I agree 100%. And I guess like you said that, they were trying to move the story on from a point where the story was basically at an ending. They had basically, the good guys win, everybody lives happily ever after. But wait a minute, there's a lot more of this story to tell. Right. How are we going to tell it? And how are we going to tell it in 2 or 3 hours and get people on board? So I wouldn't want to have the responsibility of having to write that and figure it out.
Well, I mean, where could they have gone with Luke? In the first movie, we know he's gone into hiding.
Right.
So he's obviously not well. He's obviously not in a good place.
That's true.
I mean, you can't start the next movie with him, oh yeah, I'll train you. No problem. Yeah, I've been hiding here just for why? Why are you hiding? If they had to find a map to find out where he was in the first movie.
Yeah, and it's
there was obviously something.
You can't. Nobody can find him. But then in like the storyline that you were telling, that everybody else just happened to bump into each other.
Exactly.
In this big huge universe, right? I get it, man.
So it's like I hear the fans complaining about what they did to Luke, but what do you? If you're going to blame somebody for that, they were blaming Rian Johnson for that. You can't blame Rian Johnson for that. The setup was there with J.J. Abrams. If you're going to blame somebody, blame J.J. Abrams, because he set that up in the first movie. A lot of people were mad that Rey wasn't related. They thought they were going to find out that Rey was related to
the granddaughter of Luke
or something.
Right.
But if you watch the first movie, she has that flashback when she finds Luke's lightsaber.
I do remember that.
And there's a ship taking off, and she's like, "Hey!" It's like her parents are leaving her. This is in the first movie,
right? And
so you hear some guys, "Hey, come here." You hear some guy pull her off screen, and that's consistent with what you find out in The Last Jedi, that she was sold by her parents for beer money, and they just left her.
Yeah.
So most of everything Rian Johnson did was consistent with what J.J. Abrams had already set up. So I don't see why people are complaining so much about that. Now, I will maybe agree with them on what they did with Grandmaster Stoke, or whatever his name is. I felt like he didn't really get much of a story. The setup on him was kind of, they just what's his backstory? I mean, you don't really find out what his deal was.
What's with Darth Maul in Solo?
Okay, back to Solo. Yeah, that was another thing.
Talking about a contrived cameo appearance that didn't really make sense. Or
from what I've heard, it made sense in context. If you watch the cartoons, the Rebels cartoon, well, they had two cartoons, right? It was Clone Wars and Rebels.
And yeah,
if you watch that cartoon, I guess they continue Darth Maul's story where he got robot legs or something, and then he tracked Obi-Wan down. There's some kind of storyline that they had in Rebels.
I'll have to look into that because I had.
Yeah. So if you considered Rebels and Clone Wars canon, that would make sense to you watching this movie. But I don't think most people, that made no sense. It was like, it confused me until I looked it up later. But I was like, this guy.
But who's going to go home? I mean, unless you're a big fan of film like us, who's going to go home and start
do that
researching? Okay, and wrapping this up, I just want to say something about one of the challenges to Disney buying this franchise, right? And you're taking it from a fan base that started out. The first one came out in '77, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Somewhere around that time. And so that fan base is now middle to old age, right? Yeah. And so Disney's challenge here is to bring in a whole new set of Star Wars fans. You know, it's to convince young people that, hey, this is something that you guys can get behind. So we live in a world of people being more socially conscious now, you know, and our children are growing up to be more socially conscious. Right. So a film that lends to that, you know, being more diverse, accepting, putting women in more power roles.
Well, that's why I want to ask you, what do you think about them blaming Kathleen Kennedy for this? Because they've been framing her as some kind of feminist. Do you know anything about Kathleen Kennedy?
Not specifically, but I know what's going on in.
Well, she was not George Lucas. She was Steven Spielberg's producer at Amblin Entertainment. In fact, I think she created it. Her and like Frank Marshall, they co-created Amblin Entertainment with Steven Spielberg. So she was his producer on almost every movie. In fact, if you look up, I got her IMDb page. If you look up some of the movies she's worked on, now this is the woman that a lot of these angry fanboys are calling a feminist. These are some of the movies she's helped produce. Such diverse films like E.T. the Extraterrestrial. That was like her first movie. Poltergeist.
Oh, wow.
Gremlins. Back to the Future. An American Tale. Empire of the Sun. Who Framed Roger Rabbit. I mean, these are some of the whitest movies that have ever come in.
Yeah, right.
I mean, she did produce The Color Purple, though. But I'm trying to see where she gets this, where she can legitimately be accused of being this feminist, and I'm not seeing it here.
I think
Schindler's List. Okay, maybe Schindler's List was, you know, was of course about the Holocaust. The Flintstones. Well, Halle Berry is in that, so obviously it's a feminist movie.
Yeah.
Jurassic. Did I say Jurassic Park? Jurassic Park.
Man,
just every movie I see in her list is a movie with, if not a totally white cast, almost totally white cast. It was like ridiculous to blame her for this. Producers do not. She has no writing credits.
Right.
She has no directing credit. She's a producer.
And don't the writers and the directors usually do the casting?
Right. She's responsible for getting the money, overseeing the whole production, and maybe hiring certain people like the director.
Well, like the director, but she's not hiring cast.
Yeah, but it's like, how did she become this feminist? If you're gonna blame somebody for these movies, blame J.J. Abrams, because like I said, I consider J.J. Abrams pretty much a hack. He's the guy that put all those lens flare and those Star Wars movies.
Right.
Like, so much that you got blinded. I mean, I got blinded when I was I was watching that movie. But, you know, if you really want to was George Lucas any better? I mean, with the prequels? I mean, if you want to blame any, I mean, they're acting like these movies were like conservative based. George Lucas is a big Hollywood liberal and always has been.
Right.
You know, he makes no qualms about that. I mean, one of his passion projects was Red Tails, about the Tuskegee Airmen, which he eventually had it made. But this whole notion that these SJWs and feminists are destroying this movie, destroying the Star Wars franchise is just everything they hate about these movies can be put in the lap of some white guy, whether it's J.J. Abrams, Rian Johnson, George Lucas.
Right, and I don't think it's fair that she gets attacked the way she is.
Yeah. I mean, you just look up her name on YouTube. You'll see nothing but these videos slamming her for Solo, which had a white lead, right? A white male lead, which is what they've been complaining about with the new franchise, 7 and 8.
Well, some of these fans you're not going to make happy no matter what you do, and they're going to have to. They want to point the finger at somebody and have somebody take the fall, and I guess it's easier for them to point it at a woman.
They found a convenient woman in the mix, and now they're just like latched on to her. Oh, she's a, and I don't.
And her resume speaks for itself.
And her resume speaks for herself. She's not a friend of. I mean, I don't think she's a friend of. I mean, she's probably a nice woman, and supportive of the diversity in these new movies, but she hasn't.
Well, maybe she's got vision to see that, you know, the way that Hollywood was run before wasn't going to take Hollywood into the future.